and you're welcome to the Delta State Governorship Debate of 2023. I am Frank Tietie.
And I am Angela Ajitumobi, and you're watching the live coverage of Delta State Governorship Debate 2023 put together by the Arise News channel. Your opening remarks will introduce yourself and why you think you're suited for this job. Of course, we expect to hear about your antecedents and your achievements that qualifies you to be on this stage competing for the governorship seat of Delta State.
It is a battle of ideas and ideology for the heart and minds of the people of Delta State. And the stage is set for you to speak to the people that matter, in whom lies the ultimate political power. Now, you will have 2 minutes each to answer to any question. And without further ado, may we respectfully welcome
the candidate of the Young Progressives Party, Comrade Sonny Ofehe, and you also have 4 minutes for your opening address.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Comrade Chief Dr. Sonny Ofehe. I'm from Iyede, Isoko North local government area of Delta State. I was 23 years old when I left this country. I've spent 27 years plus living in the Netherlands, and I have environment and human rights activism as my background. My track records over the issues of the Niger Delta as I bring them to the global stage is out there for everyone to see. We currently have Delta State, a state that is in peril, a state that any leader that needs to take over the mantle from 2023 need to be somebody that will think outside the box. We cannot continue to boast of the 165 square kilometers of coastline that is not properly being utilized, and being the gateway to the south and the southeast region of this country, we're not using the economic potential that can bring to us. We currently have the highest number of tertiary institutions in this country, which makes us, in terms of human capital development, leaves us with a lot of opportunity to engage our young people, which nobody is talking about. You will all agree with me that we're currently in recession. We currently rank the state that has the second highest debt profile in this country, which means that anyone that is seeking this office must be someone who has the capacity to be able to bring in foreign direct investments. My 27 years outside of this country puts me ahead of every other contestant on this ballot to be able to attract, and my benchmark in my first 1 year in office has been put at $26 billion of foreign direct investment possibilities that can come into these states. And then, of course, I want to look into how we can grow our middle class. We do not have any functioning middle class at this moment. And also, we need to also look into how we can begin to create job opportunities for our young people, and also look into how we can bring back our moribund companies that are no longer existing at the moment. So I have the capacity, the tenacity, the exposure, the contact, the network around the world to be able to key into the Sustainable Development Goal project, and also to key into the climate change opportunities that avail themselves with the current COP27 conditions that has exposed. And then also, lastly, we need to start to look into how we can attract investment in all other sectors. Rotterdam, a city where I live today, currently has the highest concentration of tank farms in the world. And I think that Delta State can compete at that level. If we are able to get leadership right in this state, we have the potential to become the 7th largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa. And as we go through this debate, I will begin to let Deltans know my plans towards achieving all of these economic and social goals. Thank you very much.
And that's time up for you, right?
Thank you very much, Comrade Ofehe.
Right, so the questions will be coming from us at the panel here, and then with the global audience that is currently watching you, taking interest in the greatest state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria that has a number of not only material resources but human resources. So there is a keen interest in this state to which any one of you is seeking at this time and will ultimately govern as the executive governor. The first question in this regard, which when it is asked, you will have 2 minutes to give a short answer. You are speaking to Deltans, the ultimate people. They own the vote. They determine. You are supposed to be their servants. Speak to them. And the question on infrastructure, the first one is, what definite plans do you have to attract the kind of funds, investments, and models that will ensure that the infrastructural deficit in Delta State is addressed? In addition to the fact that Delta State has a large swath of rural areas that are not connected to the internet, that are not connected with roads, especially in rural areas. What definite plans do you have for infrastructural and rural development of Delta State?
Well, my government is going to be the first government that will look beyond the FAC allocation, the 13% derivation, and the 2% that we get from profit made from the oil companies. There is need for us as a state to look critically into our oil and gas sector. Most of the people operating in our state today have systematically taken their corporate headquarters out of this place. So in my first 100 days in office, I'm going to sit down with the IOCs. I'm going to discuss modes of operation and the need for them to come back so that from there I can attract corporate and income taxes. And I'm not going to end there. I'm going to look into the agricultural sector. As it stands right now in Europe, land is gradually shrinking, and Europe cannot even boast of up to 20% of land space. And while in Delta, we still have about 75% of our land space that is begging for utilization. And there are several investment opportunities that lies in this sector. So with my connection and my knowledge of how these things work, I will be able to attract into these states several big companies that will come in. And this is where I'm going to also raise my 26 billion that I just mentioned in my first instance. And then we look at the infrastructure. I told them in Agbaroto, in Asaba, there is need for us to look at how we can bring back our companies, like the Asaba Textile Mill, for instance. 75% of what we're wearing today here is sewn by our own African Nigerian tailors, and the cotton are being exported from the outside. So I want to also critically look at how we can bring back our moribund industries and how we can ensure that through bringing them back, we'll be able to employ some of our unemployed youth, and in that area, we will be able to attract investments through corporate and income taxes that will come from those sectors.
All right, Comrade Sonny Ofehe, your time is up, your 2 minutes up. As a follow-up question to this,
yes.
This round of questioning, and it goes on this specific note. Delta State is noted for the natural resource of having natural harbors, water bodies, big enough to have, at the time, 4 seaports in these 4 seaports in Nigeria, in Delta State. Now, the question is, which none of you spoke to, is this. What specifically would you do in 2 minutes? Let Deltans know that the blessing of seaports, harbors, whether it's in Sapele, in Koko, in Forcados, in Warri, all of these natural resources, what would you do to harness this natural blessing for the benefit of the people of Delta? We are aware of other states, I don't want to mention, that are developing deep sea, Atlantic cities, even though they are state governments that don't have authority to develop ports, because port is on the exclusive list. So what would you do specifically? Because the next question is to unemployment. What would you now do with this natural blessing that has been abandoned over the years? There were seaports, whether in Koko, whether in Warri, whether in Forcados, whether in Sapele, all around natural harbors big enough to host big ships. what would you do specifically in 2 minutes?
Well, when it comes to the issue of our 4 under-functioning seaports, it is one area that has actually given me some nightmares. The advantage the people of Delta State has, as me becoming the next governor, is that I live in a city called Rotterdam. And Rotterdam has the most busiest seaport in the world. And for those who have been able to access my manifesto, I have clearly stated in my manifesto that I'm going to set up a Delta State liaison office in Rotterdam. And one of the reasons why I am doing that is because the advantage that the Rotterdam port and the Antwerp port gives to the world, I'm going to ensure that I put in the right people that will talk to these port authorities so that we can bring their experts in here to assess the level of our seaports and to also see how we can draw up a proper business plan for either complete takeover of those seaports from the federal government or at least work with the federal government in a public-private partnership arrangement. And the funds that will follow such investments will be coming also from Europe. You know, there are funds that are available in Europe under the European Union. There are other funds that are available from from countries in Europe. So these are the opportunities that we will bring to the table.
Comrade
Thank you.
Ofehe. Your 2 minutes is up.
Since the Right Honorable Sheriff Oborivori, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, has alluded to the reason of having another engagement for today, that's being the basis for not being here, Arise News is offering him live and direct another opportunity tomorrow at the same venue, the same time, to be here.
And the management of Arise TV also invites Senator Omo Agege tomorrow,
the stage is set
day
for
of March,
Right Honorable Sheriff Oborivori tomorrow.
Yes.
Right here in Warri at the Brownfield Center, and distinguished Senator Ovioma Agege now has an opportunity, a golden opportunity to also tackle the Right Honorable Sheriff Oborivori right here tomorrow. So the opportunity has been given
tomorrow's
freely.
Debate will be at 7 p.m. as well.
Can I interject?
Same venue, and the
please.
2 candidates will face each other.
Chief Great Okoro, you have a right of reply.
Yes,
for 1 minute, please, sir.
Yes, this is not acceptable to me. I think that is a sort of an ambush, and I'm not prepared to go ahead with this debate further. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Comrade Ofehe?
Well, to be very honest with you, I knew these 2 political parties were not going to come. We signed a peace accord some few weeks ago where the Consul General of the U.S. Embassy was in Asaba. They didn't take it seriously, but in that situation, they brought representatives that came to them. You know, this Delta State is where it is today because of these 2 political parties. Nigeria today is the only country in the world where its citizens are buying their own currency that government did not give to them. So for them not to honor this invitation, it's a disrespect to the people of Delta State. It is dishonoring to the people of Delta State and also to the world. It's a disgrace to our democracy. I will stand here today to continue this debate, and I will come tomorrow because I can't wait to challenge them in this public debate.
Thank you. No hand claps, no hand claps. Now, moving on to the questions so that we, for want of time,
yes.
Delta State ranks very poorly according to the National Bureau of Statistics report on multidimensional poverty and unemployment. Briefly speaking, what would you do to create jobs for the teeming young people of Delta State?
Yeah, well, I think I find the question that the beautiful lady there just put across in the oil and gas sector, because that is also linked to the question that you just asked about job opportunities. Let me remind Nigerians and indeed the world, a few weeks ago, the oil multinational companies made a whopping $260 billion from crude oil, profits made from crude oil, due to the the Russian-Ukraine war. And Shell, in their 101-year history, made $38 billion. And Nigeria contributes 10% to Shell total global profits. and my state did not make a penny. And you just mentioned the position we occupy right now within the oil and gas sector. We did not make a penny from that. So anyone who wants to govern this state should have the knowledge and the capacity, the diplomatic capability to be able to sit with the IOC, not even at Nigerian level, but on the international level, to discuss how we can reassign our country, because that sector has the capacity to also bring back about 20,000 jobs for our teeming young people, and that is one critical area that will engage some of our young people.
Comrade Sonia Ofehe, your time is up, and
Ofehe.
we'll go to that very all-important question on security. Because of time, we're running very seriously out of time, even though we had questions to ask about the state internally generated revenue. We also had questions to ask about the backlog of pensions and gratuities and salaries, together with plans on agriculture. But we'll go straight to the question of security. There was a time in Delta State, particularly in the Warri area, in the Ughelli area, and even in the Asaba area, when farmers needed to pay protection money to herdsmen in order for them to go to farm, or else they will be kidnapped or the women will be raped. So what plans do you have to guarantee Deltans that you are able to provide security as the chief security officer, knowing full well that there is yet to be the amendment of the Constitution to have state police? Briefly, please. It's a very important question. The most important questions that Deltans want to hear is, why are they not safe inside Delta when they have a governor?
Well, I am 100% in support of state policing. And I strongly believe that that will be an opportunity for us to integrate our vigilantes and make them and conscript them into our state policing. And how am I going to fund it? That's also another very interesting part. I've just mentioned that on the ballot for Saturday, I am the only candidate that has the tenacity, the exposure, and the capacity to be able to attract from the outside foreign direct investment. And what I want to do is that while I am signing a memorandum of understanding with all of these companies, I'm going to set aside 5% corporate social responsibility amount that will be directed into the issue of security, because while we are doing it for our citizens to be protected, we will also be using it to protect the companies who are coming in. And I'm 100% sure that these companies will abide with this. 5% of every investment that come from the outside in foreign currency will be sufficient enough for me to run my state policing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is still the Delta State Governorship Debate 2023 happening live right here in the historic city of Warri. You don't control police. You want state police, but nothing is being done to make us have state police. But you are making promises today. If Deltans begin to call you names and call you out when you are governor because you are not doing what you promised, would you use the police to now create insecurity for them, punish them, chase them out, and they will run away from Delta and Japa? So it's just a follow-up to the question. So,
you know, my background is environmental and human rights activism. I have to state here too that it is not only, I will not only be responsible to Deltans, not only be responsible to Nigerians, but I will be responsible to all of my friends globally. So I cannot use the state police to hunt anybody. Rather, I will empower the state police, ensure that there is transparency in my government. And also, it's going to start from my fiscal policy. I'm going to set up a state-of-the-art website. If you see the one the Delta State currently has, it's a shame. I'm going to set up a state-of-the-art website that can be that will be very transparent, user-friendly, public engaging, and I will also engage with all the security operatives in the state, you know, on a monthly basis. And then the state security police itself will be empowered, will be given all that they need to be able to carry out their duty effectively without interference. So I strongly believe that as the next governor of this state, the first 4 years will mean peace, prosperity, and tranquility for all Deltans.
Okay, thank you, Comrade. We'll go straight to healthcare. There was a time here in Delta State when women who wanted to give birth and who were going to have birth by surgery, which we call cesarean sections, didn't have to pay a dime for those surgeries. I understand that in the last 7-8 years, that is no longer possible. In other words, a woman who has to give birth by cesarean operation will have to pay money for that. What will you do to ensure that all women can give birth free of charge in this state, whether it is by what we call natural birth or by cesarean section, without paying a dime, because it is not their fault that they have to have a child by surgery?
Well, this is one very critical aspect that my manifesto has looked at with some experts globally. And so I have stated in my manifesto that I will ensure that every pregnant woman, I don't need to wait until they give birth to now know whether it's cesarean or direct birth. Every pregnant woman in my time as governor of this state will have free access to hospital and free access to medicine. And every children born till the age of 5 will have free access to hospital and free access to medicine. And how do I intend to fund this? I want to use my proceeds from look at the proceeds from agricultural investments, because one of the major ideas behind my agricultural policy is to ensure that we produce quality and affordable nutritional food for our people. In doing that, we would have been able to combat some of the primary health challenges that we face, which are resulting from malnutrition. So once we can clear that, we can be able to get the space to be able to deal with these pregnant women and the children that are young, and as of course our senior citizens at the same time. Let me quickly just add this to it.
Yes.
So therefore, I want to also ensure that I will become the first governor in any Nigerian state that will give social benefits to underprivileged citizens. Therefore, every month I will be giving a 10,000 naira minimum to underprivileged citizens in this state.
Thank you very much. I have a question, a very quick one. Rotus Odiri is a professional broadcaster in Arise News. He has all the figures with regards to business and development in Nigeria. Has this question, which I intend to ask. 75% of the revenue of Delta State currently comes from the Federal Allocation Committee monthly. 75%, whereas it means that Delta State wholesomely depends on revenues that are shared monthly from the Federal Revenue Allocation Committee. What, therefore, is your plan to reverse the huge dependency of Delta State, together with the fact that its internally generated revenue is only 25%? So this is not a good record. So what plans? In 2 minutes, sir.
Well, Delta State is where it is today because of the over-reliance on FAC and internally generated revenue, which is mysterious. That is why my focus will be on foreign direct investments. And in foreign direct investment, I'll be able to, with my foreign direct investment policy, the icing on the cake in my administration will just be what comes from FAC, what comes from the 13% derivation, and the internally generated revenue. But there is a need for us to also look at how we internally generate revenue. I mean, the internally generated revenue that we currently have in Delta State is exploitative, and that is why in my first 100 days in office, every levy, taxes on keke riders, motorcycle, bikers, and even our women who have decided not to do crime but are hustling and working in the market, I will scrap them. In Ogbejo market, while I was consulting with them yesterday, you cannot have people who are suffering in that kind of condition and yet you tax them. So by the time I take over office as the next governor of this state, I will institute a moratorium on every taxes and levies that come from those market women until we are able to show government responsibility towards them by giving them all the social amenities that they genuinely deserve. And in that way, we can start talking about how we generate revenue from them. Foreign direct investment is key to the running of my day-to-day administration. And on the ballot for Saturday, I think I am best positioned to be able to bring this into the state.
Thank you, Comrade Ofehe. I want to take you to the education sector. The United Nations advocates that 26% of a state's revenue is reserved for funding education. And we all remember fondly a time when Delta State was leading in all the exams, the West African School Certificate, many external exams. You always had Deltans at the top of the tables leading. What do you intend to do about that? Will you institute that 26% of revenue to fund education? Because we all know that without education, we're doomed.
This is the most important part of my manifesto, so you can't take me out of the equation.
Nobody can take you
I hope
out.
I'm not using my 2 minutes already.
No, not yet.
Okay,
Your
thank
2
you.
minutes starts now.
Thank you. Well, our education is in coma. Whether I stick with the 26% or whether I'm going to increase it will be determined by the team that I will put in place in my first 100 days in office. I am a proponent of public schools, and I will impose the Rwanda format, the Rwanda system, which they tie to the Sustainable Development Goal, therefore attracting foreign investment in that capacity, not paid investment for them to pay back. Time will not be enough for me to explain how they did that. But then we need to look at how we can pump in money. Our teachers today in this state are suffering because of inconsistency in salary. And most of them are stuck to a particular government level, like my daddy just said, where they are not promoted. So the motivation is dead. And most people who are transferred to the riverine communities don't even go because the government do not make a proper arrangement or incentives that can ensure that they go to those areas. So it's a sector that needs diagnosis. Without that, you cannot stand here and talk about how you deal with the situation. But it's going to play a critical role in my government because I am who I am today globally, because I attended a public school, Unity School, Agbaro. And I want to give that to our children, our youth. I was in Delsu. I saw the state of suffering in that school. And most of the students till today are still begging me. The deadline for their tuition fee ended, I think, on Tuesday, a few days back. They've been neglected, they've been squeezed, and parents can no longer afford the tuition fee that is placed on them. So these are the things that I want to critically look at. If Delta State can give me the chance to give them.
Comrade Ofehe. Thank you.
All right, we're gradually coming to the close of this debate session, but there are some controversial issues with regards to each and every one of the candidates here. And this debate, so that it doesn't appear to be a charade of rehearsed questions. We didn't rehearse any questions with you. And Deltans and world over will ask questions on the social media. We'll be asking you very soon. But this question I want to put to each and every one of you specifically would give you an opportunity to disabuse the minds of many people across the world with regards to certain controversies surrounding your personalities, because you are here in a very crucial debate. Comrade Ofehe, you are said to be a diasporan, even at this moment. You don't live in Nigeria. You are very proud of Rotterdam and Netherlands and the things that they do. You spent all your time in Netherlands, yet you want to, only when it comes to election, you come and make billboards, want to be governor, and you've also contested elections several times. So why are you really here to win, or you are just pushing a scheme? So please, these questions are specific to each of you. You have 2 minutes to disabuse the minds of Deltans, and whatever you say now will be final on this matter. Thank you.
Well, it's a very good question. In as much as I am a diaspora, my participation and my activities back home, particularly within the Niger Delta region, speaks volume for itself. They are all in the public domain for people to see. I was the first man to actually attract Europeans, Americans to come during the militancy era. You know, I was the first person to go into the creeks to engage these young men on the need for them not to take arms, but to take advantage of the general publicity that they have gathered to see how we can turn them into positivity for our people. In 2014, Ma'am, I'm not yet there yet. Yes, in 2014, I was also the person who came to the creeks with some Dutch people to see how we can help Cottage Hospital, 12 cluster communities in southern Ijaw area. The reason why I specifically picked those locations was because these 12 cluster community were host community to Nigerian deep sea, the 2 biggest offshore drilling platform, the Bonga oil field and the EA oil field, with a combined capacity of 500,000 barrels of crude oil per day. And then I have been invited severally to speak at Senate committees here in Abuja and House of Representative committees. I've also attracted, so my record is...
You have made your point.
Yes, my record is there for everyone to see. I am in this race to win.
You have made your point. Angela, yes. Maybe you take this one. However, it is now time for you to ask yourself questions.
Yes.
And the response time will just be a minute because we have less than 10 minutes to
Mine is not a question. Mine is an appeal to my daddy here.
1 minute.
And Chief Great Ofehe Ogbaru.
Yes.
Daddy, you know, I've followed you for many years. I love you so much. You know, you were one man who stood out for me. You encouraged me while I was in the university. And in 2019, when I wanted to become a candidate for the APC, you know, after much pressure, I stepped down for you. And I know how much you want to see a better Delta state. And I know how much you love this state. And that is why you have worked tirelessly over the years.
Are you campaigning for him?
No. I'm coming. I'm not done. I'm not done.
Your 1 minute is about to be over.
I'm not done yet.
Your 1 minute.
But I want to appeal to you here, Daddy. Please, support me in this race.
No hand claps.
Give it to me. I will ensure. I'm not done yet. Daddy, I will ensure that all the dreams and wishes you wanted to give to Deltans, through me, your son, we will give it to Deltans. I know how much you don't want the APC and the PDP to take over this state. Think about it. We have 3 days to the election. Thank you so much. God bless you.
This is campaign. This is campaign.
Well, my simple...
He has the right of response for 1 minute.
He asked me a question.
Okay.
He sought my support.
Yes, sir.
He made an appeal. Of course, he will not get that from me now. It were better that I supported diaspora than to support this gentleman standing here. The time for you has not come. I think we should do what you did in the last election. Step down again, and let's do this business for the last time.